everyone! So today we're going to be talking about your different process options for going through a divorce. Before I get started, I do want to clarify, every single state has its own laws and rules that dictate what you need to file in a divorce. There might be different terminology for those documents, and there's also different time periods for a divorce. Many states have what's called a waiting period. That's the time that it takes from when you start your divorce to when it can be finished. So for example, in Arizona, our waiting period is 60 days. In California, it's 6 months. So you want to be considerate of that when you're thinking about the timeline and process of your divorce. I do have clients who ask me, well, if we haven't lived together for 3 years, aren't we just divorced? Or are we just divorced because we just need to fill out one piece of paper? Or he or she can get a divorce without me, right? I don't need to do anything. The thing is, it's a legal process and it has certain steps you need to follow. But what we'll go over today are what are your process options to get through those steps to finalize your divorce. So your first option is going to be what's called litigation or going to court. Litigation is what most people think of when they think of going through a divorce or legal process. It's very adversarial. It's pitting one person against the other in a court proceeding. In a litigation case, you typically are each going to hire your own attorney. Your attorney will represent you and will help you file all of your documents. If you're able to reach an agreement with your attorney outside of court, that's typically referred to as a settlement. Where if you have to go to trial, where you can't reach a settlement, instead you go before a judge and a judge reaches a final decision for you and finalizes your divorce. Litigation is going to be one of the most lengthy processes. On average, litigation can typically take about 8 months to over a year. And particularly post-COVID, we're seeing that many of the courts have been backed up with cases, so it could take a bit longer. As for cost, you will usually pay an attorney what's called a retainer, so an upfront fee that you pay to retain their services, and then an hourly fee once that retainer is used up. What that means is on average, your cost is around $20,000 to $25,000 per person to go through a divorce with an attorney. It could be less, but it also could be more. I've heard stories of people paying up to hundreds of thousands of dollars to finish their divorce process. So something you want to be considerate of. Your second option is what's called mediation. Mediation is a form of ADR, which is alternative dispute resolution. It's an option that's outside of the court. So a third-party neutral, a mediator, helps you and your spouse reach all of your agreements on parenting as well as finances and support, such as spousal support, which is also referred to as spousal maintenance and alimony, as well as child support. That mediator helps you reach the agreements and then either is able to draft the documents and submit them to court for you, or is able to refer you to a professional that will draft the documents and submit them to the court. What this means is you aren't going through the lengthy court process, and typically the cost is much lower. Mediators, some get paid on an hourly basis, some do a flat fee structure. But the price is going to be substantially lower because usually you're paying a fee together as a couple rather than as separate individuals like you would with your attorneys. So together, you're typically paying on average between $5,000 and $7,000. Some mediators will be less with your whole process from beginning to end. Some mediators may be more. But it is a substantially lower cost. It usually also takes a lot less time than going through court. On average, most mediators are able to finish your case in just a few 2-hour sessions, and that means that your divorce process can be much shorter. Again, being considerate of the fact that there are waiting periods in every state, can't typically get around those waiting periods. So you have litigation with attorneys, mediation with a third-party neutral, a mediator. Another option is what's called collaborative divorce. A collaborative divorce is actually involving a number of professionals, such as a mediator, a mental health professional, such as a therapist, a financial neutral, which is also usually what's called a CDFA or Certified Divorce Financial Analyst, as well as two attorneys. You are all working together in conjunction to reach agreements that are going to work for you and your spouse. The last option, which is the least recommended option, probably the nicest way to say that, is doing your divorce on your own. I have had people that have come to me and said, I just want to do my divorce on my own. The court has paperwork that I can fill out. And the reality is that's true. Many courts will have templates that you can fill out. It's not highly advisable to do a divorce on your own if you have finances such as assets and debts or children. Parenting plans to start with are very in-depth, and you want to make sure that you have all the information that you can. You also want to make it something that works for you and your family, rather than a cookie-cutter agreement that happens with a checkbox on a court form. As for finances, many times court forms can't cover all financial agreements, such as retirement accounts, because they're very complicated to divide. If you're a couple that doesn't have kids, maybe you each have a car and you have bank accounts, and you are working on things together, there isn't a lot of fighting or conflict, then potentially those forms are good for you. But it's just something to think about in terms of asking for help instead of trying to do it on your own, because you can make a lot of mistakes on your own. That's what divorce professionals are for. What you can always do as well is in your area, there are many professionals that are going to provide consultations. Those are either free or they're for a very low fee. You might as well go to a consultation, learn about their process, and see what options you have. That way you can feel as knowledgeable and educated as possible going into your divorce. If you're interested in learning more about the basics of the divorce process, I host a divorce boot camp twice a month. I put the information below so you can click on the link to schedule. It's one weekend and one weeknight every single month, and we go over things like we did today, the process, but also what are the main financial pitfalls to avoid going through divorce, and what kind of options I, as a professional, provide in the divorce process. If you're interested, please subscribe to the channel, like this video, and follow each week to get new tips and tricks on how to do your divorce process in the best way possible. Thank you.